We often hear how progressive overload is one of the most important variables in training, but that's just wrong and misleading, and it makes me mad. Now, do you understand how big of a deal this is? It's insanely pervasive, this idea of progressive overload, and I wasted so much time behind this. So in this video, I want to tell you what took me too long to learn about progressive overload and give you really step-by-step instructions that no matter who you are, can make you a lot more effective at gaining strength and muscle. Because as you know, this whole channel is about building strength and muscle at the same time. This is meant to be the channel about this. And it's all I've been doing throughout my training career. As a regular guy, I was able to put on 20 kilos or 45 pounds of muscle while at the same time building up my strength, learning skills like the human flag or doing a 175 pound or 80 kilo weighted chin-up. What I do now is share all that I learned in this channel and in Project Delta, where you can find my best work. And this video right here is supposed to be the solution to progressive overload. I put many hours into this, and I'm gonna give you step-by-step instructions on exactly what to do to up your level of strength and muscle growth. So let's get clear on the idea of progressive overload. It's very simple. So it's the idea that you need to train harder than last time, pretty much. So if today I train here, next time I want to train harder, so maybe like this, okay? The next workout I want to train even harder and pretty much continue indefinitely. Because if I continuously train like this, so next workout I train again here, then here, then here, workouts become easier and easier because we continuously get better, and so we remain stuck at the same level, okay? So if we want to continuously improve, we need to make training harder, okay? To give a good reason to our bodies to improve. That's the idea of progressive overload. And why is it wrong? Because it's really a chicken and the egg problem. So, chicken and the egg. This would be a chicken, right? Versus the egg. So here's the cycle, the deceiving cycle. So the idea is, okay, you want training to be challenging, okay? Training is a challenge. So, awesome. What happens is you get better, so plus gains. And so since now you're better, you're stronger, you're bigger, next time you want to train harder so that it's challenging and the cycle repeats. But why is it a chicken and the egg problem? Because what happens in practice? When you look around in the gym, when you even look at yourself, sometimes you are already training hard and yet you can't progress for 1 month, 1 year, or multiple years, and you are stuck at the same level. And you're already training at your limit, so you can't possibly train harder. What's going on here? And this is the confusing problem. Like, I had coaches years ago when I was relearning this stuff, where I paid them to learn, and since this idea was so pervasive, I had programs where I was already at my absolute limit and the program kept getting harder. And I couldn't make progress, again, for months, for even years, unfortunately, which I want you to save. I want to save you that pain. That's what I was trying to say. And I think this word right here, progressive, I think that's what's so deceiving. Because who said training needs to progress like that? The idea that training needs to progress every week, like I need to have some variable that progresses. I need to increase my reps, I need to increase my weight. Where does that come from? A lot is just the vocabulary. So I realized by going through this cycle right here and failing at it continuously, having coaches forcing me through it, having myself forcing me through it, and feeling continuously that we had a problem. So what I realized was that my body really just needs to have something challenging, very challenging, for it to know, oh, I need to get better. But it doesn't necessarily need to be continuously more challenging over time. So we can view it like this, right? So this is how hard training is, how challenging it is. And basically it's like as if there was this like threshold, this level. Below this, training is too easy and it doesn't make you improve. And above this, training is challenging and therefore you improve. So what I'm trying to say is, as long as you are here, training in this zone, this training is sufficient to make you improve without it needing to necessarily go like this, getting harder and harder, because at some point you get to your limit. Maybe your limit is this, and so this becomes straight up impossible. So the old way, okay, the old way was training needs to be continuously harder over time. So maybe if we are training like biceps, for example, okay, if you're training biceps, maybe on week 1 you do 10 kilos, okay, let's make this smaller. On week 2 you do 11 kilos, or you're supposed to do that. On week 3 you are supposed to do maybe 12 kilos or whatever that is in pounds. But what happens when, very realistically, you are at your limit here? You are forcing 10, 11 kilos, but you're just not completing the sets. You're trying to do 12 kilos next time, and you do even more, even less reps. You can't complete anything in your workout. Now here's the new way, okay? Basically, your focus shifts from just continuously making training harder to just making sure training is very hard at all times, in the first place, regardless of what it looks like in terms of weight or reps. This is the shift from forcing training to be harder to just saying, I just train hard, and if I get better, if I get stronger, then naturally the weights are gonna go up because I'm continuously keeping my training hard, okay? If I'm stronger and I want to make training hard, it's gonna be natural that I'm gonna use higher weights or I'm gonna do more reps. You see the difference between the old version and the new version. So an objection you could have is, what if you can't improve? So what if you are stuck at 10 kilos forever, let's say, okay? Now, do you think the solution is just forcing 12 kilos on you? 5 pounds extra? Is that the solution in your opinion? I can't get better if I'm just gonna do more weight or try to do more reps. That's the solution. Like, if that's your strength, you can't force new strength out my magic. That's not the way it works. You're just gonna do less reps. So that's not the solution. This is not solving your problem of not improving. The beauty of this is that it was so surprising to me how well this new way worked on myself. Like, after being stuck for a long time with this old paradigm of forcing progressive overload and understanding what actually needed to happen, I started making progress again. I was completely stuck, and then boom, oh, this is how it actually works. And unsurprisingly, I start getting bigger and therefore also much stronger. So progressive overload, the old way, is very misleading and is this chicken and the egg situation. But it does point to something true. There is such a thing as the right training and what is that? You just need to make sure you're training very hard at all times. And what I want to do now is tell you exactly how to make sure you do that. So you can replace the old notion of progressive overload with this new notion of challenging training. Challenging training. So natural, so simple. And yet when an idea is so pervasive like progressive overload, even the simplest solutions can get lost. By the way, for each video on this channel, I create a summary with all the points in the video and a worksheet to apply them for yourself. And actually, you can get a full archive of all the summaries and all the worksheets and a lot of other resources that I never even mentioned on this channel, all that for free in Project Delta, which is the link in the description of this video. Again, it's free, and I really think it can complement the videos and accelerate your understanding a lot. So here's what to do instead. Now, why would the body improve? We need to ask that question because the answer is what we need to do. Why would the body ever improve? The body improves, gets stronger, builds muscle when you train hard enough. Okay, we could say over this threshold. So our whole goal is to make sure we train here. And that's not always that intuitive. So, how to train hard enough? Let's get back to the start. So what to do? We're gonna make a nice distinction between two things. Number 1 and number 2. There we go. The first thing is gonna be about, where is it? Okay, hypertrophy. Oh man, too tight. Hypertrophy. So how do you make sure you're training hard enough for hypertrophy? Because this is different from strength. And since this channel is about how to increase muscle and strength at the same time, we may want to know this super important part, okay? So, how to train hard enough? Problem number 1 is hypertrophy. On hypertrophy, you hear a lot of stuff, like some say failure is king. Failure, like how close you are to absolute failure, like you just can't do another rep. Saying that the closer you are to failure, the more muscle you're gonna grow. Failure is king in that sense. And some say volume is king, where basically it's all about how much you train. That's the king of hypertrophy. Now, which is it? If you look at research, for example, you find that, well, let's look at both, right? What does research say about failure? Research says that basically the closer you go to failure and the better it is. Happy face. What about volume? For volume, which just means how much training you're doing, just the raw quantity, research says that the more you do, the more muscle you grow. Happy face. So this is really the breakthrough, is that it's all about having both. So this is a big unlocker for understanding hypertrophy. It's like having two doors, where each of those two is a door. View it like this. Basically, when you open both doors, you get muscle growth, and pretty much your body is forced to grow muscle at that point. So the first door, this is a door, and the second door. The first door is training to failure. So this is you opening the first, opening the second, and there you go, you have muscle on the other side. So again, we're talking about how to make training challenging enough. It's the replacement to the old idea of progressive overload, the actual thing it points to. So this is what I do, just the guidelines, step by step. If you repeat this, it's gonna be very hard for you to not grow a ton of muscle, I can tell you that. Door number one, what exactly to do? Basically, door number one is about failure. So the idea is that you want to take each exercise, so for example, you're training biceps, you want to take your bicep curls and bring them to failure as fast as possible and then train there. This opens the door, this makes training challenging and opens the door to muscle growth. If you're not training to failure, and it's been shown over and over how important this is, to failure, not close to failure, within the limits of safety, okay? To failure, the closer you are, the better it is. So what I do is this is one original idea that I use. One, what I call safety month, because training to failure can be dangerous, okay, can lead to injuries. So I do one safety month. Basically, for a new exercise, I take 1 month to get closer and closer to failure. And after the safety month, boom, I just train to failure. That's it, okay? What happens is that the weight naturally, as you get used to the new exercise, goes up over time. So if you are doing bicep curls for the first time after a couple months, you're gonna see that weights keeps going up. At a certain point, you're gonna plateau, that's normal. You are not gonna force it to continuously go up. Once I can't progress for a month on an exercise, I just swap it for another exercise and continuously training like that. Over months and a year, you're gonna see visible progress for once in hypertrophy. Again, this is the true progressive overload. Really, don't make me even say that word because it's very misleading. But this is how you make continuous gains for a year. Just take this, like this is the sauce, this is it. I just use one safety month for new exercises, keep hammering at it to failure until I can't progress anymore. Wait to be sure 1 month where I can't make progress, and then I swap it with another exercise. There you go. So now let's open the second door of volume. This is very simple. This is what I do. This is the key. Like failure is the key one that you must open. You must train hard or it's not challenging at all. But once it's hard, it's all about how much you do. Like, do you want a lot of gains fast or a slower pace? This is where I have two approaches, which is, we could say, the minimalist approach to volume. Approach 1, approach 2. So approach 1 is, we're a bit tight here, minimalist, and the maximalist. Minimalist, I just do this. For the minimalist muscle, which I want to grow, but I don't want to spend many hours in the gym, I'm gonna make a video on volume very specifically, because there's a lot to unpack. But the minimalist approach is that you just pick your muscles, like your biceps, and you do 8 sets a week. And that's gonna be enough for you to grow muscle with the tiniest amount of time possible. So you're still training to failure. This is key for 8 sets a week for a muscle. And then for the maximalist approach, if you want faster gains and you have the time, I do 20 plus sets per week. Why 20 plus? Because I recommend starting at 20, like literally counting them, planning them, and then if you can recover, you can do more, okay? So we have solved really hypertrophy. We learned how both failure and volume are king, not just one, not just the other, both. Failure opens the first door, and you want to train to failure, I do a safety month and everything that we've covered. And then the second door is, once I train challenging, how much of that challenging training I do, volume, determines how much gains, how much muscle growth in this case, I get. And you can pick between the minimalist approach, 8 sets a week, or the maximalist of 20 plus for each muscle. There we go. Progressive overload solved. So the next problem is on how to get stronger, how to make sure that strength training is hard, because it's very different. And before we continue talking about that, and I give you step-by-step instructions, since to some of you this can be very useful, I wanted to make a quick advertisement, well, from myself, because I always wanted to create one place, just one place where one would find everything you would ever need to know about training, about how to get stronger, how to build muscle, like all the most powerful ideas and models all in one place. And so I set out to do it, and took me 2 years of work, but I made it. And you can get it in Project Delta. Project Delta is the link in the description, and it's free. And once inside, you can get this in the premium tier. So again, this is meant to be the last thing you will ever need. So if you're interested, you can check it out in the link in the description of this video. So what about strength? Because strength is very different from hypertrophy. A lot more different than you would intuitively think. Because, you know, I have tried it all, both on how to gain muscle and strength. And I sometimes trained really hard, like to failure and with a lot of volume, pretty much what I just told you to do with how to grow muscle, and I didn't get stronger at all. And sometimes I trained very easy and I made a lot of strength progress. Like, what's going on? When you look at charts of studies on how both failure and volume, the key variables of training, work for hypertrophy versus strength, the difference is so surprising. Like strength, really, once you're at like 5 sets a week, very low volume, very, very low, there seems to not be many benefits after that. And same goes for failure. Like, it doesn't quite matter how close you go to failure. How can that be? And the surprising thing is that when you try this, it's very counterintuitive, but when you try training easy for strength, you're surprised by how much week after week after week you keep getting stronger. What's going on? And this is how I currently train strength. It's quite easy. So I want to give you step by step exactly what I do. It's called the 3-set attack. We're going to get into that. This was such a huge insight for me. Basically, hypertrophy is all about building extra mass. Like, you're getting the engine to be more powerful. It's the actual engine you're making bigger and stronger. But strength is different. Strength, we need to start viewing it like efficiency. What does that mean? It means that basically your muscle size, so if you have, let's do this, okay? You have like a small muscle and a big muscle, okay? A small muscle that's not strong maybe lifts whatever, like 50 kilos. A small muscle that's strong lifts 100. So this is very, like, it uses all the muscle. You can view it like the less strong muscle is unable to use all of its resources. Once you train strength, you basically learn and teach the muscle how to use all of its resources. And so you get strong, but up to a ceiling, right? You only get strong up to a ceiling that's determined by how big the muscle is. So a bigger muscle means a higher ceiling. Ultimately, if you want to get stronger, you need to get bigger. And that's the secret of why I was able to get big and strong at the same time, because the two are so interconnected. And so a bigger muscle, maybe inefficient, is 80 kilos of strength, but when you make it efficient through strength training, and I'm gonna tell you exactly how to do that, maybe it lifts like 160 or whatever, okay? Again, I'm gonna make a video more in depth about this, but let's just get into the sauce. What exactly to do? So this is my favorite approach. I call it the 3-set attack. Because you just do 3 types of sets, it's very brief, and you see surprising strength improvements. I recommend that you try this and you're gonna be surprised. So basically you do just 1 set, let me write this better, and maybe in red too, why not? 1 set of 1 around like 2 reps from failure, okay? So 2 reps in reserve. Basically it's a weight where you could do 3 reps, but you just do 1. Then you do 1 set of 3 reps with, again, 2 reps in reserve. So you could do 5, but you stop at 3, which is about 90% of the first one, if you want percentages. And then I do 3 sets of 6, very easy. It's like around 8 reps in reserve or a 5 RPE. Basically, it means that it's pretty easy. You barely feel it burn. What you're doing here is just basically here doing the bulk of your strength work. And then you're just doing 3 sets of 6 where you're getting in some practice with the movement. What you're doing here is just that you're teaching your muscle how to become efficient. First, you teach it how to become efficient with high weights. Okay, we use low reps, which means naturally higher weights. And then to not get too tired, because it's counterproductive for strength, because if I get tired, then I can't use high weights and then I can't get efficient. So to practice without getting tired, we do more reps, very easy, and surprisingly it's gonna benefit strength a lot, and you're gonna find your numbers go up and up and up until you get to the ceiling of how big your muscle is. At that point, you can maintain your strength, but to get really a lot stronger, you need to build muscle, which now we know exactly how to do. Okay? So, a quick example, let's say that you want to get stronger at bench press. Very nice. You do a 1x1, for example, with 100 kilos. Then you do a 1x3, let's say 90%, that's 90 kilos. Then you do a 3x6, which is usually around 65% of the first set. So 65 kilos. And you can see if you can do 100 kilos with margin, 65 is very easy. It's just practice. You're just teaching your muscles how to become efficient. No need to force it. It's very tricky. And by doing this, just this, I improved massively. Like I'm giving you the formula. This is it, okay? So please test it. Pick one exercise that you want to get strong at and just follow it for a month like this. And you can thank me later, okay? So really, strength is just the size of the muscle multiplied by the efficiency. And you teach it the efficiency, for example, by using the 3-set attack. You want to use high weights, but without getting tired. And so you just do a couple tactical sets in the exact way that I told you, okay? So what about progressive overload? As usual, it's embedded in this. You are making training just hard enough. And what happens when you get stronger? If you naturally progress by training like this, well, your 1x1 is gonna, and all of these weights are just gonna get higher naturally, not forcing it. When you force it, you are too tired to even challenge your efficiency, and so it's all counterproductive. Of course, I myself, for a lot of time, I couldn't make progress. Okay? So, we understood how progressive overload works. Actually, if I can zoom this in. First, I don't want to hear about progressive overload ever again. is just misleading. You're forcing harder training when you are already at your limit. You got this chicken and the egg problem, you look around, nobody's making progress. Then you train in this other way and suddenly you get progress. So let's switch from progressive overload to just challenging training. Okay, the switch is from harder and harder, which was the old way. We don't want this. We want instead, there it is in blue, we want hard enough always. This is what you want, not harder and harder and just having these waves of whatever. Like, you need to give your body a challenge and you need to do that as much as possible. So hard enough and always. And you know how to do that both for hypertrophy and for strength. So next time, this is how we conclude this. Next time you want to get more muscle, instead of thinking about progressive overload, ditch that. Next time you hear about progressive overload, ditch that entirely. Remember, hard enough. How do I train hard enough? To failure, absolutely. And then volume, one of the two approaches. For strength, you can use the 3-set attack, understanding that strength is all about getting efficient. So that's it. As usual, at the end of every video, I show you my weekly physique and lift updates, just for proof, I guess, that I practice what I preach. And yeah, I'll see you next week. We got a banger coming up, and it should be a full guide, very awesome one, full guide to how to get a strong and jacked back. Okay, I'll see you there.